Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to another one. So today we're going to talk about and set up the Klicky Pro. Now I know everybody, a lot of people have been requesting this from last year, but you know, due to family and just was busy in the background, I didn't get a chance to actually continue my my how-to Clipper series. So now we're back to doing a small little how-to for the Klicky probe. Now the Klicky probe has since then updated. It's no longer the same, so I'm going to do a little small walkthrough on how it was different and to how it's different now. Okay, so let's get to the Klicky probe website real quick. I'm going to go ahead and type it in here real quick and then drag it across. Klicky probe. Okay. Alright, so how was the Klicky probe different? So before, when I had the Klicky probe, when I did set it up on my my printer, which is my 2.4, my Trident, and my V1.8, it was a bit different because you had one CFG, which was a Klicky probe CFG that includes everything. So it includes all the macros, all of the Klipper features that include Z-tilt, quad gantry leveling, and then a couple other macros for certain other Klipper specific feature for the printer. But it was housed in one large file. So as an example, I'm going to show you what the previous one looked like. Go ahead and show my Klicky probe. So this was the previous old Klicky probe, right? So this was, it had the variable at the top, right? So as you can see, the variables at the top, and then at the bottom here you can see all of the stuff that we'll go through, the dock, see, as you can see, quad gantry leveling, Z-tilt, screw tilt, bed mesh, probe calibrate, probe accuracy, everything was compacted in this one file. Now, and that was you know, it was cool because it was just one file to worry about, and all you had to do if you didn't want a certain features, for example, as you can see, Z-tilt here for my 2.4, all I had to do was hashtag it out. As you can see, it's all hashtag out. So that will remove that macro from my actual from the user interface, which was Fluid I was using at the time. I'm now using main cell, and I just recently had to update to main cell because I like some of the features that they updated the latest main cell with. But all I had to do was hashtag out the feature. As you can see, screw tilt was hashtag out as well because I don't use screw tilt. I don't think anyone used screw tilt on the actual 2.4 builds. So, but it wasn't hard. It was really easy, really simple. Figured it out, was working. Now, the new one doesn't do that anymore. So what the new file does is it takes that file and break it up into many different features. For example, so screw tilt is its own feature and its own CFG. Quad gantry level is its own CFG. Z-tilt is its own CFG. So all those are its own CFG. And so you had one file that houses all that, right? All the callouts, and then another file that goes into your main printer.cfg that is linked to all those callouts. So it just makes it more easy. So you can pick and choose what feature you need and don't have to have a ton of files in just one list. So to show you what I mean, I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate that. So the first thing you need, this is assuming that you already have your printer set up. Okay, so that means I'm assuming that you already have your Klicky probe in place, you have your mount in place for the Klicky probe, and you just want to figure out how to configure it so it works. Okay, that's what that's the place I'm coming from when I'm showing you this setup. All right, so I'm gonna go back here. So the first thing you want to do is come right here where it says Klipper macros, right? We're gonna click here. Now, as you can see, you see Z tilt, Z calibration, Klipper variable, Klipper specific, screw tilt calculate, quad branch level. As you can see, those are all breakdown. But remember, the previous file I just showed you had them all housed in it. So now the difference is that we're taking out those features instead of having it in one file, and we're putting it in a separate file by itself, right? So it's a separate macro, a separate function. So let's say, for example, a 2.4, I'm not going to be using screw tilt, right? There's no need for that on a 2.4 because it's fixed mounted bed. I'm not going to use Z tilt, which is using lead screws. In this case, we're using 4 belts in order to jam the gantry. So because of that, we don't need those 2 features. So we can pick and choose what macros we want to make everything cleaner. So this is much better, and I like this idea a bit better because then you can pick and choose what you want and don't have to have a bunch of macros cluttering your UI that you know you're not going to ever use. So that's where the breakdown is. So in order to get this going, we're going to click on the Klipper macro zip. We're going to click on this zip. We're going to download it. So I'm going to open my download folder, and I'm going to extract these. So now, because I don't want to replace this, I don't want to replace my Klicky probe, my previous Klicky probe file, because all of the information for my specific 2.4, how where the dock is located, where my Z and stop is located, it's all in this previous Klicky probe file. So instead of me remembering where those are, I can click on that Klicky probe file and copy down that information and put it into the new one. So instead, I'm just going to go ahead and rename this. Now, you wouldn't have to do this if you're starting from scratch. But in this case, I'm making my life easier, and I'm going to just say 2, just make it easy, right? So I'm going to go ahead and delete that because I no longer need it. So I'm going to, just so you can see, because I didn't think you saw what I just did there on the screen. So I just renamed this one, the fresh one, Klicky Probe 2, so that way it doesn't override the old Klicky Probe setup, okay? Because I need information from that in order to make this work. So what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna go to my printer. The first thing I'm gonna do is upload that Klicky Probe file right here, this right here, and I'm gonna rename it once I upload it. So I'm gonna go ahead, rename this. Like I said, you don't have to do this if you're starting from scratch, but for me, I had to do this so that way it doesn't overwrite my previous file. Alright, so once this is uploaded, I'm gonna go into my printer.cfg, and I'm gonna put an include so it can talk to that file, so that way my main printer CFG can speak with that file. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and copy this. I'm gonna paste. I'm gonna remove main cell here and type in Klicky Probe -probe. Okay. So what this is going to do is allow this CFG to connect and speak with the Klicky Probe CFG, correct? And just read the information in that. So I'm going to save and restart in this case. And let that printer connect, and we'll be back. Alright guys, so we got a little small error, which is fine because I understand what the error is. So this error said the own.py clipper config clicky probe variable. So that means I'm gonna have to upload the rest of the variables, the variable folder and the actual other folder that's needed. So in this case, to know what you need, if you click on this clicky probe CFG, you see where it says include requires. So I need to upload the variable CFG and the clicky probe macro in order for for that error to go away. So all we just do, I'm just gonna go ahead and upload all of them, even though I'm gonna use some of them, but we can just upload all of them except this one. So let me just delete this, make it easy. I'm just gonna grab all of this here, upload, and there we go. So now that I did that, if I do a firmware restart, I should be able to connect. Okay, so now we're connected, we're back. So the next thing to do now is we're gonna edit a few things. So the first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna go into this clicky probe CFG. See all this include? You would have initially take all this include and put in your printer.cfg on the top, right? So you're gonna include all of this. So instead of doing this, you only have to include this specific clicky probe CFG, right? And this automatically houses all of these macros, right? So it just makes everything cleaner. You have a separate file with all of this include, but you only need to connect it by using just the main clicky probe CFG. Just much more cleaner and less clutter in your main printer CFG file. Very clever, and I like this setup much better. So what I'm gonna do is some of these I'm not gonna be using, right? So in this case, I'm only gonna I'm only gonna activate bed mesh, because I do use a bed mesh. Remember, clicky probe variable and macros are required, right? That's the only way you're gonna get to use the macros that you need. And the variable is basically the variables are basically your Z ohming override, your quad branch leveling, and whatever other feature you have in your main config. That's your variable. It's gonna take that information and that's your variable. It's gonna plug those all in automatically for you, right? So that's what variables are from what I'm understanding. Now if anybody knows better than me, you can clarify, but I'm pretty sure what the variables are. It's basically taking coordinating points from your main printer.config, plugging it into this clicky probe config, and plugging those missing number that it needs in order to make those macros operate properly. So I'm definitely going to be using bed mesh calibrate. I definitely won't be using screw tilt because we don't use that under 2.4, but I definitely need quad gantry level, so I'm definitely going to activate that. You know, the 2.4 don't use Z tilt adjust. We definitely can use the Klipper Z calibration, but I haven't set that up yet. I'm going to do that in the next video because I still haven't figured out how to get that going. But for right now, we're just trying to get the clicky probe going in this video, so I'm going to leave that for another time. So now that I activate those, I'm going to save and close. Now the next thing we're going to need to do is plug in some information into the variable. Okay, so we're going to click on clicky probe variable, and this is where we need to plug in some information in order for it to work properly. Now I'm going to use the information from my previous clicky probe, the older clicky probe file, in order to fill this in. But in this case, since you wouldn't have the older version of this, if you're brand new trying to get the clicky probe working, I'm assuming, you would just read what this information is. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up my old clicky probe and then kind of go over it with you guys and tell you what to fill out, even though it's already there, what each of those variables are. So I'm going to open my old clicky probe file. So as you can see, my old clicky probe file is right here. And so as you can see, when you look at it, it houses all of the macros prior to you guys. As you can see, it houses all the macros. So I'm I'm going to go ahead and plug in some information I have from it into this new one. So pretty much everything here is fine. I'm not going to touch anything here because it's fine. What I'm going to start touching is here, the max bed. So the bed size for my 2.4 is 300 by 300. So whatever your bed size is, you're going to plug it in right here. Keep in mind, you don't have to just use this on a Voron. It can be used on any other printer that actually uses a Clicky probe or a separate ZN stop. You can pretty much use it on any printer, really. So 300 by 300 on my max bed size. If you're using a separate ZN stop switch, you're going to put the location. I'm using a separate ZN stop switch, so my location on that is 206.70 for the X and 292.00 for the Y. Now, keep in mind, you guys see me looking back and forth. That's because I'm looking at this. As you can see, I just copied this down. I'm just copying information down. So I'm not hiding anything from you guys. And then this says the dock. So this needs a dock location, all right? So these are dummy values. So it needs a dock location. And I do have my dock location. And that is 45.70. to 98. Now, before I continue, you may be asking, okay, you have your information previously, how do I get my information? So if you look at my other Klipper videos, you saw how I grabbed the Z-tilt information. It's the same way, right? You're gonna jog your tool head. So in this case, in order to find the dock, you're gonna jog your tool head to where the dock is, make sure it's lined up, and move it as far back until you can actually grab the probe. You know, when the probe actually latches onto those magnets. You're gonna record the coordinates for that, and the way to do that is to look at mainsail or fluid. Just look where the X and Y coordination is on your user interface. You just copy that. That's all you have to copy, and you plug into this file. Very, very easy. Nothing hard. You just plug that into this file. If it doesn't grab it as good, you can always come back and readjust and take that coordination and replug it back into this file again, and that should fix it. Now, for variable location Z, now if you're using for fixed gantry, for example, if it was on my gantry fixed to the back of my gantry, then I wouldn't have to touch it. For example, like a V1.8, you don't have to touch this information for. My Trident, I wouldn't have to touch this information for. But unfortunately, mine is not on a fixed gantry. Mine is actually on the bed, behind the bed. There's a little very slick mount that they have for the dock. I'm actually using the Onyx Engineering quick draw probe. I like that a little bit better than the actual Voron design version. So I have to specify how low my Z gotta go, or my gantry in this case, in order to grab the probe. So I gotta remove this, and I gotta put 4.02 millimeters in height. Okay, so that's mine here. Relative move, okay, we can change that. I'm gonna go ahead and put 40 because that's what my previous file said for this. So I'm gonna put 40 there. For the Y, put 0 at the bottom here, 30. So this is just, it says dock move, final toolhead movement to release the probe on the dock. I just put 40 there because that was what was automatically in the old variable Clicky probe file, and 30. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just copying and pasting. You can do this. I don't think it affects anything, and I'm not sure if it does anything major. But you definitely want to remove the 1000, right? Because I was getting a lot of error when I left the 1000 there. So you definitely want to put something there, whether that's 40, 30. You can do that. You can copy what I have, but that seemed to work with no problems. And if anybody knows what the relative numbers for this is, you know, you put that in the comments so that way anybody that sees this video can actually understand exactly what they mean. But to me, this just means a final movement of the tool head when it moves. So as far as umbilical, we don't need to touch anything here. We're not using umbilical in my case. The location to part the tool head, I do have a location for that. So it's 150, 150. And then I'll change this from false to true. Case sensitive. And that's about it. So for me, I'm done here. That's all it needed from me. Now the rest of the information, it will pull from my main printer.config in order to do the quad gantry leveling and find the Z end stop and such. So I'm gonna save and close here. There's one more thing that I gotta do. So if I come here, I gotta disable this because it, like I said, the variable does a bunch of things. It pulls in information from what you typed and also from the main printer.config in order to have the Klicky probe operate and do everything that it needs to do. So in this case, because there's a built-in script to do the homing and everything already, I don't need my separate homing for the Z and stop here. So we can kind of hashtag that out. Right. Yeah, this is a boring part, guys. Should spare you guys this foolishness here, but this is definitely the boring part. So, but you have to hashtag them out because it will give errors. All right, so now that's all I gotta hashtag out: the quad gantry leveling, the bed mesh, and the actual. I think that's all I have, right? The bed mesh quad gun, yeah. So those features I don't have to hashtag out because again it will be pulled in by the variable in order to make sure when it grabs the Klicky probe it can actually follow the coordinates I set in the main config, right? So I'm gonna save and restart this and test and make sure it works. See if it will connect. If it doesn't connect, I'll just give it a full restart. Alright guys, so now that we're back, we're connected, no errors. Hopefully you guys caught on to that. As you can see, there's some macro that's automatically populated. As you can see, attach probe lock, clean. That's one of my nozzle cleaner that automatically pick up dock probe lock, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and home my printer, and I know it's gonna work because like I said, I have my previous config in there anyway, so it's gonna home like normal. Now, remember I hashtag out my Z and stop location because the Klicky probe variable file will take care of that homing. As you can see, it went to where my Z and stop switch is, and it's homing the Z. There we go. So now we're gonna go ahead and make sure, as you can see, it went back to the center because that's what it does with this new Klicky probe. It actually let it park in the center. Now you don't have to enable this feature; it would just stay in the corner like where it was, where the and over the Z and stop. But in this case, I definitely wanted to park in the middle. Just looks nicer while it parks in the middle. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit attach probe, and then it should go to where my probe is and attach. So there we go. And look like it grabbed the probe, and it did. So it grabbed my probe, and as you can see, I can confirm because it told me right here that it grabbed my probe. And if we do a quad gantry level, now it should pick up again the coordination from the main printer.cfg and read that and then import those coordination into the variable so that way it knows the spots of where it needs to do the quad gantry level. So if I hit it, there we go. And now it's doing the quad gantry level. So this is a success for me. The next thing I would do if I get the chance is go ahead and try to do another video on the Z calibration where it does the automatic Z offset. And then yeah, and I think that will complete the Klicky probe stuff. But like I said, this was basic This was a basic tutorial just to get you guys that are new to the Clicky probe how to set it up and how to make it work. And hopefully this gave you enough information to at least get you going. And when I get another chance, the next video will be how to activate the Z calibration setup and how to get that going. So I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. As you can see, it's working, and hopefully I see you in the next video. Peace out. Thank you, guys. Bye.